Welcome to the podcast, Jess. This is our Building Dream Teams podcast. I have my co-founder Jess with me here today, and I'm excited to have this chat with you because we're doing so many amazing things at Trybe, and we have been attracting amazing people to come and join us in our team. Who resonate with our values, who resonate with our vision. Of helping leaders transform workplaces into thriving communities. And so, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, so I'm excited to be here on episode 5-ish, maybe. Yeah. Pleasure to be here.
Right. That's right. So maybe we can start off with your version of the origin story behind, our vision and what we're doing here at Trybe. Like, if you can give us a little bit of an inside scoop on, why did we come up with this vision and why are we doing this whole thing with this company called Trybe?
Yeah, it's like a lot of entrepreneur stories. I think it's noticing something in the world that just doesn't quite seem right and being like, somebody should do something about that. And then sort of having a moment to say, well, maybe I should do something about that. Maybe I'm somebody. There's a lot of pain in the workplace. There's a lot of unnecessary toxicity. There's a lot of poor leadership. There's a lot of just lose-lose situations happening with people at work. And we've had some really terrible experiences. We've also had the opportunity to interact with some good leaders as well. And I think through our careers, it became really obvious that there were some deep flaws in how companies run and exist. And they didn't need to be like that. I don't know if we're just like really reflective people or we like to analyze systems and optimize things, but it became really obvious that so many of like the inefficiencies and the difficulties that we were encountering in the workplace mostly came down to company culture and leadership. So we endeavored to sort of try to start finding a way to contribute to being part of the solution and not just harping on the problem.
Yeah. And I guess once you've gone through the pain of bad leadership, for me as well, I've had many horrible bosses along the way. It teaches you, I mean, in hindsight, it teaches you a lot what not to be as a leader. And it pushed me in so many ways to, go and find leaders in the world who are actually doing amazing things and who are actually, taking care of the people who are in their charge. And, with what we're doing today, we are getting to attract amazing people. Why do you think so many people are coming to us? Because we talk about, the vision, we talk about the values as kind of the lead magnets to bring people to your mission and the purpose that we're trying to put out in the world. What is your experience of that, like in terms of like the type of people we're attracting into our company, and how can others also utilize this to help them to find the people that could be part of their tribe?
Yeah, I think a huge part of that is creating intention towards that. So, we talk to founders a lot about hiring and creating team culture. And most of it just comes down to actually making decisions to make sure that that works really well. It's a part of business. Hiring, team building, team development, team management is as much a part of business as marketing or sales or any other function, engineering. So with the same level of, focus that we give those areas of business, the sort of human part, the team part also needs that. And one of the big things that I think that we did before we ever brought anybody into Trybe was sit down with intention and say, if people are going to come and join us to do work with us, what does that really look and feel like? And why are we doing it? And why should they care about joining us? People are not just software programs that are plug and play and, are just so easy to define the parameters on. When you're hiring for a role, you're hiring a person. You're not just hiring a resume or a set of skills. So there's a lot of intention that can be put toward fit. And that's really like one of those words that we came down to with Trybe and that we talk about a lot is fit is so important. Fit is what creates win-win situations instead of lose-lose situations. And, I think as far as us having intention towards making workplaces into thriving communities, sorry, uh, we put some research into it. We actually went and looked at what does that look and feel like. And so by the time we actually started articulating it to other people, all that intentionality that we had put toward, our vision statement and our values, the authenticity is there. People feel that. They actually get it. They're like, oh, this isn't just like optics kind of jargon that's you can see and feel in other places. And part of that is self-awareness from us. Part of that is having done the research on company culture and team building and leadership, and using that to help inform the way that we created our vision and values, and then making sure that vision and values are front and center when we talk to people about joining our team.
Yeah, totally. And that's so important in the process of, as founders, we have to put ourselves out there. And really the vision in the beginning is just our vision, right? The company evolves and other people come in and join in, and they add to the vision, they add to the, purpose we're trying to build here. But in the beginning, it's just us, and it's how we portray that really well. I mean, one of the questions that's coming to my mind, which most people like to know about co-founders, is firstly, we're like husband and wife team, which is becoming very popular these days with people like Alex Hormozi and Leila Hormozi and stuff like that. But a lot of people ask the question like, when did we know we had the complementary strengths that would make for a strong, co-founder relationship? I'd love to hear your side of the origin story, like, and things of like, when did you know? Because we come from different backgrounds. Like, you had teaching background, and you studied science and biology and stuff, and then you got into the marketing side of things, and we started working very early on as consultants and things like that even in our relationship. But when did you know that we had those complementary skills, and we would make great co-founders?
That's a fun question. I mean, it was really early for us. I think even before we were in a relationship, we wanted to work on projects together, and that's part of how we got to know each other. But yeah, in a lot of ways, you and I are opposites, like complete opposites. You're more extroverted, I'm more introverted. You are amazing on like the vision side of things, and really articulating that to people and inspiring and creating high level strategy of like where things are going, and the ideation piece. And that is not where I thrive. It's not that I can't contribute, but like my strengths lie more on the planning and implementation side. And so by the time you're bringing somebody who has a lot of strength in ideas and people leadership and vision together with somebody who is a great implementer and planner, that helps moves ideas to execution and helps somebody who has a lot of execution potential to have the right ideas to work on. So yeah, it's always been super complementary. Even before we were ever a couple, we were already trying to work together on different kinds of projects, and it's taken a lot. I mean, as much as like husband and wife combos in business is becoming popular, it's not easy. It's something that where a lot of people even come along and go, how are you guys doing this? I could never work with my spouse or my partner. Like,
Yeah.
it's just beyond them. But yeah, we've always had a drive to create things in the world and to be entrepreneurial, and being able to do that together just means that we're bringing those skill sets together to create something.
Yeah. And yeah, although a lot of people say it's so difficult for, partners, husband and wife, or, significant others to work together, when it does work, it is amazing, because the level of trust that you can start with is so rich and so deep. The roots go so deep. And it's like, I can, like, now that we work together for so many years, I mean, we've been together for 12 years, married for 8 years, worked pretty much most of that time together. I can't even think of anyone else that could be my co-founder. I mean, there is so much, uh, like experience there, but also we know each other, we understand each other's blind spots, we can see how we can help and support each other. And yeah, from there is a level of, as they say, psychological safety that you have in the workplace, which ignites a next level of creativity, innovation, strategic ability, and then, as you mentioned, like, we both complement each other. It's that yin and yang kind of thing. Like, we help each other by helping each other see each other's blind spots, but we also ignite a whole nother level and bring out the best in each other. Right. And that's we're almost like sanding each other down and improving each other as we go along, which is an incredible strength in itself. And most co-founders should have that. Once you have the relationship, a lot of co-founders are friends sometimes who come together. Some of them have been in university together. Some of them, end up meeting somewhere and then kicking it off. But yeah, the depth that we have, and if there's anyone out there who are thinking about this, yeah, I think it starts with the depth in your relationship. And it originates from that. And then how does that cascade into everything else that you're doing in business as well? Because it's like, the old world thinking was, especially in the world of work, there's this version of me that comes to work, and then there's this version of me that's outside of work. And I think today we are trying to figure out an integrated approach, right? It's a symbiosis of all of you. And can I show up as my fullest self? And it starts with, the root of the kind of relationship, and then moving over from there, and it's adding these nuances, these layers that can add to it. So yeah, I'm very grateful that I have Jess as my co-founder. I mean, she's excellent when it comes to management and implementation of so many projects that we run, and we would not be able to do all of those things without Jess. So thank you so much, Jess, for being an amazing co-founder, an amazing person who brings so much of joy and life into my life, but also I've seen it as a leader. You're an exceptional leader in the lives of the people that we lead, and they would resonate heavily with this as well. So thank you for being that person.
Oh, that's really kind. Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those things as an entrepreneur, you have to love it, and you have to love all of it. And where you don't love it, you have to either compensate or have somebody who can, like you said, sort of pick up the blind spots. I think, there's a huge opportunity when you work together with other people that you get out of your own head, you get challenged in good ways and sometimes in bad ways, but it all sort of leads up to something more profound because you're combining efforts. Uh, I'm likewise in a place where I would have a hard time understanding how to be like a solopreneur, for example, and not have somebody like you sort of watching my back and knowing that, you can take a little bit more risk. You can put and float ideas out there that maybe you wouldn't otherwise if you were just doing it by yourself or you didn't have the level of trust. And so, yeah, it definitely contributes to our ability to lead the business and also lead our team.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to ask the question about, how did our individual backgrounds and who we are as people, and our experiences in the workplace and experiences in life, shape our shared vision for this workplace transformation that we are trying to bring into the workforce, bring into this new age of kind of, next generation leaders? Like, how do you think it has shaped it?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I mean, Trybe is not our first entrepreneurial venture.
Yeah.
And if I look at the sort of the through line of the things that have been at the root of all of the businesses that we've tried and learned so much from, it's that ultimately we really care about people and we care about making an impact on the world and making the world a better place. And so that's always been sort of the core. Whether we're putting our intentions towards the workplace or towards, things that help support not-for-profits or anything else, the depth and the piece that we resonate truly on together is that this is going to help people. This is going to actually make a difference. It's going to help with Trybe. It's going to help all kinds of people. We focus on founders, but we focus on founders and leaders because they're the ones who make a tremendous impact on everybody else that comes into that business. And so it's this beautiful sort of ripple effect that can happen when you're trying to make positive change at a level where that positive change creates additional positive change. And it can be exponential in the way that workplaces actually become communities. And we recognize that there's been some historic challenges in the workplace that just don't need to be there. There's lots of, mentalities and toxicity that if we actually just looked at the fact that we work with other people and treated each other like other people, and if we all had some kind of baseline that we could all say, yes, we all agree on this. And yes, we might disagree on the how and the what, but the why of what we're doing, then that creates such a better opportunity for everybody. And so that's where we came to Trybe is eventually we're like, this is one of those places where we can see a huge potential to really make a difference. Like work does not have to be miserable. Like there's so much great research and there's so many examples of companies where new leadership either comes in or moves out and the same team is there and all of a sudden it's a completely different place. It's better outputs. It's, less churn from the talent side of things. There's a lot that can be done, but it comes from what I mentioned all the way at the beginning, which is like making intentions and then communicating those intentions so that people can come together around that. And so Trybe is sort of a micro example of what we're trying to do as our impact in the world.
Yeah, I love what you said about that, and that totally affects the people that come into, want to be part of this, because almost like when we use vision and values to attract the people, right, to our company, they are almost self-selecting the identity, the aspiration that they have within themselves, that they get to embody when they come and work in our company. It's not just a job. It's actually, it's much bigger than that. It's not just for a paycheck. It's actually for something that's shaping them as they're going along as well, which leads me to the question, which is, what qualities, because this is what hiring is such a big thing in the workplace, and people are struggling to hire the right people. And when one of the stats, I think in the research that you did when we were looking at company culture and all the different companies that have survived multiple decades, like Google, Netflix, Pixar, Virgin, like all these big companies, but there are so many other companies that were also founder led, like started by founders, like all of these companies that I just mentioned, struggle with finding the right people and do not survive even the first 3 years, let alone decades. So what qualities do we prioritize, or what qualities should someone prioritize when bringing new people on? And then how do you assess whether that someone truly connects with our mission and our values?
Yeah, that's a massive question. And I'm glad you're asking it, because I think a lot of people assume hiring is simple. It's like, oh, put a job posting out there,
Yeah.
read through some resumes, do a couple interviews, and then you have somebody on your team.
Yeah.
And like at the very, very basic, that's the motions you go through level, that's sort of right. But depending on the way that you go about those steps will create a significantly different outcome on the other side. So there's at least 3 huge areas of fit that should sort of be attempted to be assessed through the hiring process. One is obviously skill set. That one I'm going to mention first because it's in some ways the least important, but there should still be some attention given to that. It's always easier to work with people who have already gotten some experience or are interested in getting experience in a particular area. But at the end of the day, there's lots of people with lots of skills. So that can't be sort of your main parameter, because even if you hire the person with the absolute best resume, if you miss the other 2 pieces of fit, you could end up with a really miserable situation. So the other 2 pieces of fit are fit with the vision and values, like you were mentioning before. Does this person actually care about what's going on in the company? Do they actually want to be there? Or is this just somewhere where they're trying to clock in, do a little bit of effort and clock out, and they're not really engaged and they're not really there for the long term? And then the values piece of that is that they're going to resonate with the way that the company operates and the kinds of decision-making parameters that are set around the way things are done. And then the third piece of that fit is the leader fit. So meaning having self-awareness as a leader about how you run your team and how you can communicate. And the kinds of people that work really well with you also are a huge piece of the puzzle, because, you could get some skill set fit and some vision fit. But if ultimately, you are the kind of leader who wants to do a lot of collaborating and a lot of meetings and a lot of, communicating, and you hire somebody who has an amazing resume and they love what you're doing, but they just want to put their head down at their desk and do their work after you've given them some instructions, that's going to become a bit of a rub, or has the potential to, unless you intentionally work on adapting your leadership to bring that person into your team. So at Trybe, obviously, we're looking for some level of skill set fit. I think we're pretty relaxed and loose about giving people chances to try. If you want to try being a salesperson and you've never sold a thing before in your life, that's no problem. We'll give you some training and we'll see how you go. And if it takes off, it takes off. And if it doesn't, and you need to keep learning and you're still committed, then we're happy to sort of do that with you. And that goes for any area of our business. The graphic design for the social media posts, there's a lot of opportunity there. If we can hire people that have pre-existing skill sets, then that just helps us out to know that they might have the ability, but there's no guarantee. There's a great quote in one of the books that's out about Google, and how you can take one person from one environment and say, look at everything they've achieved here, and transplant them into another environment, and they are not able to do the same thing. So environment actually matters tremendously. And that's why basing things solely on skill set or achievement in one environment and expecting that will just, happen in another environment, it doesn't really translate. And so, more so we're looking for vision and values fit and leader fit. So do they actually care about founders and entrepreneurs? Because those are the people that we serve. If you don't care about the people that we serve, then you're not really going to be of effective service to them. So we care about seeing that. We care about seeing that they want to make an impact with the workplace. And some people have experienced it directly or indirectly, but I would say everybody on our team understands that a toxic workplace is totally detrimental to people's well-being. And so because they care about people's well-being, they care about transforming work so that they can have, a better life, because it's not work-life balance. Work is just part of life. And so what happens at work affects your life. I see you've come back in. Do you want to make a comment on that?
No, I was just going to make a comment about the word that you use, which is called impact. I mean, attracting people and leading people to align with the impact we want to create in the world, the positive impact. Yeah. And what I wanted to ask you, is there a story of a team member that we've in Trybe that have come along and have aligned with our vision, have aligned with our values, our purpose, and we are seeing them already creating that exceptional impact that's coming to mind that you like to share? Any stories? Because I think the reason I'm asking for a story is because someone out there maybe might be starting their startup for the first time, and we've been around. We've done this for over 20 years, in businesses, and worked with startups and worked with big companies and stuff like that. And I would like them to not be discouraged from bringing people in who might not have the right skill set, but might be so aligned with the vision and values, and that is helping them to have huge learning curves and create that impact in the company. Is there a story that's coming to mind of a team member whose alignment has kind of really worked with our vision? They've connected with our purpose and are creating exceptional impact for us?
Yeah, I would say most of the people who have come into Trybe actually fit that story pretty well. As far as they make an impact, partly because they're committed. They're committed to keep showing up. They're committed to keep trying. They're committed to not just, throwing their hands up when it gets hard, but to really do the work to figure out how to make it work, especially if they don't necessarily have the pre-existing skill set. A specific example might be Sophia, who was on the podcast previously. I don't know how much she got into her story, so I won't go into too many details since they're hers to share. But she originally came to us pitching something completely different, something we didn't really need. But the way that she went about it, there was something really special about it. She had approached us because she's like, I really like what you guys are doing. I'd like to do, some of this kind of work that I'm inspired to do. And we said, we don't need this. Sorry. Right. We don't need somebody to come along and be a vendor for us in this way. But what we think you're doing is really great. The way that you put your slide deck together, and, can we give you a little bit of advice on how it might be able to improve for the next pitch? Because, part of our values is that we see the person first and we support them in the rumble. So this is a younger person who is trying to start their own entrepreneurial thing. And in fact, that's the through line for most of our team is that they all have an entrepreneurial spirit. They were all trying things before, and now we're creating a tribe of people who want to do that together. But for Sophia, she had a lot of skills and she had a lot of drive, and she, took our advice very readily. And so, she was demonstrating already a willingness to learn. She was demonstrating some early skills. She was demonstrating a whole bunch of stuff. And because we genuinely gave to her, because we're like, let's help out this young person who's starting her journey, she ended up being, one of our first team members, because in the conversations about what she was doing and what her passions were, and how maybe she could still work with us in some small way, she's actually become a huge and integral part of our business. By just having those human conversations and looking for that fit of, does this person really care about what we're doing? And the more that she was giving us those signals, the happier we were to keep sort of bringing her in more and more. And, we work with Sophia every day, all day now. And that's been a really beautiful progression. And none of that came from a resume. No cover letter, no resume, no paper details of skill sets. Not that we couldn't have started there, but it's interesting to see somebody so skilled and so integral to our team now, and that didn't even need to be part of the hiring process.
Yeah, and it's so true. I mean, from when you're narrating that story, that so much has evolved, even in just a few months that Sophia has been working with us. None of that could have been captured in a resume or a cover letter. And by the way, the resumes and cover letters today are all written by ChatGPT anyway. So why are we using that as a modality to hire anymore? It doesn't make sense, which is why we have kind of moved away from the traditional recruitment methods, and we are using video interview funnels and stuff like that. But I love that you're talking about the values in such a deep way, because just in case no one has seen some of the other podcasts, our values are: see the person first, support them in the rumble, and then let's go make things actionable. Are they, like, if you can go deeper into the values, like are there any practical ways that we are utilizing our values in the workplace right now that you see coming up every day, and how do we ensure that those values remain actionable rather than than these words that get plastered on the wall, right? So old school corporate America,
responsibility, trust, honesty,
freedom, honesty, all of these things, and they were plastered on the wall. And now today the wall is the website where you have all these like random words plastered there. But it's unfortunately a lot of corporate America sometimes was just for optics culture. It was just words on the wall, but they were not actionable. And our values are: let's see the person first, let's support them in rumble, and then let's go make things actionable together. How do you see us using our values every day in our workplace and with the people that we have in Trybe?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most important things that I think applies to values is that they work at the team level, but they work outside of that as well. So values have to be something that levels up to decision making in a real way. Like when you say some things like responsibility and trust and honesty, how do those level up to decision making in a real way? They can't, because everybody has a different definition of what that means or what that looks like, or it doesn't really give a parameter that's usable. And so we want values to apply to the team. We want them to apply to decision making, and we want them to apply to our interactions with anybody else who's going to touch our business. So that was sort of where I was getting at with the example of Sophia. Is she wasn't even in our business, but we applied our values to that situation because that's how we want to operate. We saw her. We could see that she was rumbling and starting things and maybe needed a little bit of guidance. And we offered that very gently because, we're not trying to tell people how to do things that are just coming and trying to offer us value. But the point is that values are usable, and they're usable at all levels all the time. And there's something that can be a reference point no matter what we're doing. And so one of the ways that I see us using it the most is anytime we are looking at creating an offer or refining an offer and looking at how are we seeing prospective clients first? How are we going to be supporting them in the rumble with whatever it is we're developing, and then taking that frame and making it actionable instead of just being like, we need something to offer our clients. Let's make something. That's why that value is last, is because we want to layer in the human elements first and then go and take that away and make it into something that's usable. Because at the end of the day, if you miss either one of those components, if you only are sort of considering humans and people and never actually making something that they can use, you're not really supporting them. You should probably just become a therapist or something where you're dealing exclusively with their emotional well-being. But, creating tools, creating events, creating opportunities for founders and for people who run communities or however they're leading their business model. That's one of those places where we bring it up all the time. And it's so important to our decision making that you'll hear our team members use it because we use it, and it becomes part of the language and part of the fabric of how we do Trybe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's ingrained in everything that we do.
Yeah.
It is not just for the optics. It's actually operational. It's embodied in how we behave with each other. And as you said, it is our shared decision-making framework almost, right? Not almost, like literally, it is a shared decision-making framework. Like I bring up this thing every time, this example. If some investor comes to me tomorrow and they go, yeah, I'll give you $20 million, $100 million, or whatever it is. But the first thing you have to do is you have to fire these people. I'd be like, no, that goes against our values of seeing the person first, supporting them in the rumble. And it's definitely not something I want to make actionable.
Yeah,
right?
money's a really good metric to weigh values against, because in for-profit businesses, even not-for-profit businesses, every business needs money. And so it's a real focus, and that makes sense. But you have to have something that tells you when the money isn't enough or when the money is going against the direction that you really want to head in. Like one of the examples that I use in our vision and values course is like somebody like Patagonia, where they have a huge emphasis in their vision and mission around being environmentally focused, sustainability conscious. They're never going to bring on a supplier that doesn't sort of fit the due diligence of those criteria, because that makes no sense. And that's a really obvious example. Sometimes it's a little bit more nuanced when you get into other kinds of businesses. But basically, values can be there to give you that fallback to say, I'm having a weird gut feeling about this. It sounds really great, but why isn't it landing? Or this is going to take us in a whole new direction. And yes, it's going to be really profitable, but is that really where the business should be going? Maybe. It depends on your values. If your value is profit, you're going to take any opportunity to go after that. But if you have values layered into your business that are outside of that, that's always going to impact the way that you make choices around money. And that's a nice sort of a stress test on your values, is if there's big money on the table, but it went against one of your values, could you walk away from it and feel really good about that?
Yeah, well said. Well said. In your research, I mean, you had done a lot of research on company culture and team building, and you've researched some of the best companies in the world, like as I mentioned, Google, Netflix, Pixar, Virgin, many other companies, researched people who have written about these companies and have come up with so many different ways of managing teams and acquiring teams and stuff. Was there any unexpected lessons or stories that surprised you about team building that came up in the research? You're like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Because you've told me about many stories, but is there something that's coming to mind right now? It's like, whoa, I had no idea that was something that would come out, an unexpected lesson, something that surprised you about team building and company culture.
Oh, so many, so many. Yeah, I'll tell like maybe a general observation and then maybe a specific story that's kind of funny.
Sure.
So in general, what's really interesting, like you sort of used a funny frame there of like best companies. And this is where it comes back to fit. Like
Mhm.
if we look at companies like a Netflix, they have a very particular company culture and you either fit with it or you don't. And if you do, it's likely you're going to have like a pretty positive experience because it's well articulated and it's a top to bottom approach. Everybody is held, to that company culture, or at least they were in the in the time that I was reading the research about it. But that doesn't mean everybody fits at Netflix. Just because it's a great company with a well articulated company culture doesn't mean it's great for everybody. And so, everybody thinks they want to work for a big name, or they think they have this idealized sort of concept of different companies. But just because it looks like a great company doesn't mean it's a great company for you to work at. And vice versa. So for founders, that means, just because somebody's passionate about working for your business doesn't necessarily mean they're a good fit. You have to layer in those other pieces that we talked about earlier. So, yeah, I think that's a big piece to the company culture picture, is finding ways to create win-win, where the company culture is well articulated. People are able, you used the word so earlier, to self-select and be like, yep, that sounds like me. I want freedom and responsibility, or whatever it is that's the parameters. Or actually, no, like that does not work for me. Another one example I like to use is, even though I sort of poo-pooed this term earlier, work-life balance. There are very distinct lines on companies that actually care about whether or not people can go and pick up their kids or have the flexibility to go for a dentist appointment. And those who are like, no, we're going to grind out 80, 90-hour weeks, but we work hard and then we play hard and we all make a lot of money together. And neither of those is wrong, right? Having company values just means being able to say, this is the way that we are. This is the fabric of the way that we operate in this business. And if you like it, then that's probably going to be a win-win, because you're going to be like us. You're going to want to operate like us, and you're going to get the outcomes that you want that are the same as what we're offering. Whereas, you get companies that actually expect the 80-hour work week, but they put on their website, like you were saying earlier with the optics, oh, we support work-life balance. That's where company culture falls apart, because you have people coming to apply for your jobs and they're expecting that they're going to have work-life balance, and then they're 4 months deep and they're churning. So after you put all this training into them, and they're also having to go and look for a new job now, because we just need to be more honest about the way that companies operate, so that if you want somebody to work an 8-hour work week, but you're like, you'll get this bonus structure on top of it, or whatever it is that's compensating for like that intense level of work, then those people who want to work like that are going to be attracted to it. A funny sort of company culture anecdote that I like comes from Pixar. And this would be like one of my number one book recommendations is Creativity Inc. There's this wonderful story about how they were trying to create this very inclusive company culture, because they're deeply creative and they understood that creativity really can only thrive if everybody's contributing their ideas and everybody's working to refine up to the best idea, because it doesn't really matter whose idea it is, the best idea should win. And that makes total sense for a company that has that level of creativity. I mean, I think at this stage, all companies need creativity. And this is something that is a good takeaway for every founder out there is if you want people to be able to be creative and innovative, you have to create the psychological safety and the communication mechanisms where everybody is sharing all the time so that even if it seems like a waste of time, like, oh my gosh, so many people's ideas to sift through. But what if the intern saw a viral something, brings it to the table and just lifts the whole concept? Isn't that better than being like, those kind of people aren't even in the room? So that's the small aside. So one of the big people who helped to start Pixar, as some people will know and maybe others don't, is Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs was a very opinionated person. He was a very involved person in the projects that he did. And so he was trying to be in everything when it came to creating the Pixar campus. So Pixar has its own grounds. It has huge buildings where all of its teams work. And so he was all the way in. He was helping to design the foyer and the lobby and the office spaces and everywhere, and right down to the conference rooms. And he had a designer that he really liked. And so he sort of let them help create the space. And unfortunately, the designer was probably not briefed on their company culture values because they installed in the conference rooms these beautiful, long, skinny tables. And so what ended up happening is at the beginning, people could sort of sit around the table with maybe one or two chairs around the outside. But as more and more people needed to be in these meetings, they were creating these concentric rings of people, almost like, audience seating. And because the executives always needed a seat at the table, literally, they would have name tags and they would always have a spot. And it created this perception of like, these are the people who are doing the work and making the decisions, and everybody else is just here to watch. And so just the physical environment that was created by this table that was elegant and beautiful and maybe even at the beginning worked fine, all of a sudden was disrupting their culture. And, they eventually come to a point where they realize, wow, we've said that we value this thing, but we've let a table disrupt our creative process. People aren't contributing. And even these name tags, they're making an in circle and an out circle. And that's the opposite of what we want. And so when you're not putting the intention towards your values and making sure they are literally everywhere, even the person who's designing your spaces, if they had been briefed and said, hey, we want to be as inclusive as possible and we need everybody's ideas on the table, the designer may have made different choices. You would hope that they would have supported it, or at least when the plans for the space were coming back, somebody could have gut checked that and been like, oh, if we set up our conference rooms right like this, there's no way this is going to be able to be creative and create flow for ideas. It's going to create, this very exclusive kind of looking situation. And so they eventually took the tables out. They got rid of name tags. It became a much more free-flowing space, but without being intentional about their values, they never would have spotted that. And, they could have even prevented it by making sure that their values were front and center in every decision they were making, so that even things like the physical layout of the space is supporting what they want to happen.
That's such a good story. And yeah, I remember the first time reading the book as well, Creativity Inc., which is your recommendation. And I was like, wow, yeah, there's so many subliminal things that happen in the workplace, like this skinny table, right? But like this inner circle and outer circle, which no one actually talked about. And in fact, the inner circle, Steve Jobs, Ed Catmull, all the leadership team didn't even realize that they were creating this dynamic. And
because it benefited them, right? So exactly. If it's not causing a problem for you, you may not see the problems unless, you have an openness for people to share that something is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it creates all of this kind of like struggles in the company and stuff like that. And also it inhibits creativity from happening. As you said, an intern could have seen something and come and give an idea, but they're not even in the room. And even if they were, they're in this kind of like, in the bleachers, kind of like sitting
Yeah.
back there, and don't have a voice to actually speak up and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. It's such an interesting story. Thank you for sharing that. So in the podcast, I always like to bring up, struggles and challenges, and finding breakthroughs. Uh, all over social media, we see this highlight reel life of people, right? But startups and entrepreneurship there's a lot of challenges and struggles you have to go through. Personal growth that happens within ourselves as entrepreneurs, the shift from going from the entrepreneurship mindset to a leadership mindset. um, are there any lessons, any struggles, any challenges that you've gone through as a leader yourself? Because you've worked with many leaders. You've worked with heads of marketing of Google and Starbucks, and you've reported to boards with big banks and big companies and stuff like that. But you also worked on putting together things for small startups as well. Are there any stories of struggles and challenges that have shaped you as a leader that you can share with someone today that will empower them and help them um, with their own journey if they're just starting up today? Because there are many young startup founders starting today, and entrepreneurship has become a cool thing. I mean, when I was starting only in my 20s, people didn't even know how to pronounce it, the word entrepreneurship, and didn't know what the heck that was. Is it a new croissant that's out there, like that sort of thing? But today, entrepreneurship is like this cool thing, and there are so many young, emerging leaders starting as entrepreneurs and trying to build their company. What are the struggles that they will go through? What are the challenges that they'll go through that you've seen others go through and you've experienced yourself that you
Mm.
can give them some advice on today?
Yeah. Oh, wow. There's a lot. Entrepreneurship is a huge journey and there are a lot of struggles. Like there are a lot of stories out there, yes, about instant successes and stuff, but that's a very small percentage of the population. It's much better to expect that there's going to be a lot of things to work through. Um, yeah, I just had it on the tip of my tongue. Give me 1 second. The thing, because this is the Build Dream Teams podcast, I want to make it about building teams. And the thing that came to mind was being okay with people not being a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Like pretty early in my own leadership journey, I inherited a team, which is in some ways way more challenging than building a team, because there's pre-existing sort of dynamics, there's habits that people are in, there's a lot of sort of handover that needs to happen. But one of the things that I wanted to do is create sort of a trajectory for the people who are going to be working on my team so that I could support them with their long-term goals. And this was not something that the previous leader had ever spoken with them about. And they were really responsive. I think a lot of people want to be asked, like, how can I support you in the long term? Like, what can we do today? What opportunities can I plug you into? What other teams can you go sit in on a meeting to have a better understanding of this part of the business, or whatever it is? Can I, get some professional development funds for you to go and take a course, or whatever it is that's going to actually move you forward as a person. And then as you move forward as a person, the company also benefits because you're going to bring all of those skills and all of that cross collaboration in with you as well. So this was, maybe a couple months into my leadership journey with this team. And like pretty soon after having that conversation with one of the people, she came and she's like, I don't want to do this job. Like I'm just sort of going through the motions here, and I think I need to go and do something else. And like that was a hard moment for me because I was like, I'm also new to this team. You have all kinds of information that I need to keep things running. What do you mean you're going to leave? But in the end, it was such a beautiful moment of recognizing like this person isn't just an employee. they don't just work for my team. They're a whole person. They have aspirations, they have dreams. And, you know, because I didn't hire them, I wasn't really aware of where they were at. And by opening up this conversation, it created something hard for me, but really amazing in the long run. Because yes, I'm going to have to hire for this role, but now I can hire somebody who actually wants to do it and is excited and is going to bring new ideas and isn't just going to sit there and sort of grind through the same stuff day after day. And so ultimately it becomes a win-win, even if it's painful at the beginning. And so I think my thing is about, it's okay if it's not a good fit. And even if you are the one who does the hiring and you figure out somebody's not a good fit, I've had that experience too. Like, this person interviews really, really well, and then they come in and it's like, whoa, okay, this is not what I was expecting. And again, this was earlier, before I had learned a lot more about how to do screening and interviews and stuff a lot better. But it's okay if it doesn't work. And it's hard because you've put a lot of time into the hiring process or the team building process, but it's ultimately better to help people find a better direction for themselves and create a better opportunity within your company to bring in somebody who's going to be a dream team member, not just a team member. So yeah, it can be hard, and it's a struggle to do the hiring process and find out that you need to do it again. But ultimately, it will work out so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a good story. I mean, yeah. And that fit thing, like sometimes you hire what's that saying? Like, I hired your resume and you showed up.
Yeah.
Because you think that this person is going to be the right fit, or in your case, you were entering a team where you were already inheriting a team that was existing, and it's much harder actually getting into leadership position where you have to come into a pre-existing team culture and become the leader of that team. And also in the example of hiring someone and then realizing, oh, they're actually not the right fit, and that happens to most people as well sometimes, when you're hiring early on. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle, and I think that's why so many young entrepreneurs shy away from hiring and they try to go all alone. I mean, this whole solopreneur culture is evolving, and it's fine if you just want to be someone who just works alone and does things alone. That's fine, but solopreneurship is not a business; it's an identity, right? And then you have people who struggle to bring the first few team members. Is there any advice you can give to people if they are, in that early stages where they're like, how do I get kickstarted? How do I find the first few people? How do I even go about this? And then, what could they do to kind of make that happen?
Another massive question. Just before I address that, I wanted to put something on the table to do with the previous point about, being okay with moving people out of your team if they're not working.
Mhm.
One of the ways to gut check that is to say, is this person making a mistake, or is it who they are? Because that's what fit isn't about. No one ever making a mistake. People are going to make mistakes. That's life. Like, that's inevitable. So making sure that we're not creating a judgment on somebody who, can improve. They're just in the process of learning, versus, is this somebody who's actually creating toxicity because the way that they want to work, or their whatever it is that's creating a tension within the team is never going to go away because it's just, inherent to that person. So that's maybe an opportunity for a lens on that. If you find yourself in that kind of situation, don't be too quick to move people out, but don't let them linger either, because in the end, you'll end up spending so much more time managing things than just moving somebody out, training somebody new, and that person is just killing it. We have a temptation when we've put effort and we've paid people or whatever to say, oh, well, I've already put so much into this. It's like, yeah, but your returns are not coming. You're investing and investing, but the ROI isn't there. Better to, cut your losses and say, I've done everything I can. I've trained this person. I've coached this person. I've tried everything I can to integrate them into the team. All the support has been there and it's still not working. then yes, we need to identify how to sort of wrap things well and wish that person the best and hope that they find a much better fit, and then bring in somebody who will be a better fit for your team. So that was my sort of last thought on the previous question. But your sort of wrapping up question here is how to do first hires.
Yes.
Massive question. Nail your vision and values. Step one. Like, without understanding what you're really trying to accomplish, how will you know if people want to join you on that mission? And create some self-awareness within yourself of who you are as a leader and how your business is going to operate, especially that core team. There's a lot of layers that happen when you start going beyond sort of 5 people. But if you are like solo, or you're 2 people and you're bringing in some more people, you're going to work very closely with this person. So you want to make sure that it's going to be a good experience for everyone. And vision and values is a big part of that. It helps people to self-select whether they want to be in your company. And it helps you to sort of ask the right questions and start to get to know them in a way that will tell you whether or not you're actually going in the right direction. One of the things that we like to do as part of our hiring process is use video interview funnels or video application funnels. Can call them whatever you want, but they're a screening tool. And we do this almost in place of a cover letter and resume. Because like you mentioned earlier, Sheldon, there's a lot of stuff that's just written by AI that doesn't tell me anything about the person that I'm going to be hiring. So that's pretty useless. And there's a potential that you are going to get flooded with applications. How on earth are you going to manage, going through like tons and tons of resumes and being able to sort of weigh their potential against each other if you know nothing about these people? So a video application funnel, video screening funnel, video interview funnel, whatever you want to call it, adds so many layers to the process that we find to be positive. One of them is that people get to represent themselves and we get to see them represent themselves as opposed to an AI generated text document. And we think that's a much more fair way of creating a first impression. Something else that video screening funnels do is they're hard work. Somebody has to show up on camera, answer questions. You're not going to get more than 20 people applying because not enough people want it that bad to go through the process. A lot of people are into the easy apply button or just upload your cover letter and resume. And so lots of people will do that because they're just drafted documents that they're just pumping out everywhere because they're looking for a job. They're not looking for the job that you have in your company. And so it creates a positive friction where the people who actually want to apply for your job will apply. And those who aren't willing to put in the effort now, just in the application stage, are just going to sort of go off to other opportunities where either they're passionate enough to go through that kind of application or they'll continue with their easy apply button life. And so that's been a really beautiful, transformative part of the talent acquisition process. And I would encourage anybody who is thinking of doing hires to make sure that they're thinking through whether their process actually gets them the applicants that they want. And so you don't have to use a video screening funnel, but make sure that you're being intentional about how you go about hiring, because the intention you put into the steps directly impacts the outcomes you're going to have at the end, the kinds of applicants, the way that you understand those applicants, and who's going to be a good fit on your team. And then lastly, don't be afraid to hire. Like, it's complicated and it's messy, but ultimately you can't keep expanding your business forever without other people. Unless you've set up a very particular kind of business or you want to be a solopreneur forever, you're going to need people at some point. And so better to attempt that when the resources say that that's available to you instead of grinding out those 16-hour days. Like maybe start when you're at a 12-hour day or a 10-hour day, and bring in some help into your company and get comfortable with making people part of how you're doing business. Um, there's so much more that can be accomplished when we work together. There's so many more blind spots that can be observed. There's so much more creativity that's possible. And so, yeah, I hope that entrepreneurs get inspired to start expanding their teams. And you don't have to make a permanent full-time employee hire. You could hire a part-time person for a couple hours a week just to get a start, just to start getting a feel for managing other people, and having the opportunity to have somebody take something off your plate so that you're feeling what it's like to have pieces freed up so that you're leading your business and not just working on your business. So there's lots and lots of opportunity in building your team. Start with vision and values. Figure out a way to have a hiring process that actually gets you the applicants that you want. And don't be afraid of the hiring process and actually making it something that could be really positive for your business.
Such great advice. And it's see, like when you say it out loud like that, it seems so simple, but it's so difficult to put it into action. And I think that's what we've been trying to do, is we're trying to create that kind of actionable impact. So let's wrap up the podcast with the last thing, which is your vision, your how you see the type of impact you want to create in the world of work. What would you like to see as an aspiration? Because the world of work is a bit tainted. People are, dreading to go to work on Monday mornings, and a lot of people struggle with toxic workplaces and horrible bosses and things like that. And I think we've come to a place in the world in 2025 where people are like, this, why are we tolerating this? What is this? Why is this going on? And my hope is that we will inspire the next generation of leaders and entrepreneurs, to take charge, and keep putting good out in the world. So, what do you see? What's your future vision and hope for a positive impact in the world with what we're doing here at Trybe?
Oh, so much. I'm going to try to get it into a nutshell, but basically, startups change the world. Startups have the potential to change the world. And so part of the reason we want to work with startups is because they're fresh and they're new, and they're going to bring about all kinds of opportunities, especially for creating the next big companies. And if they're set up well from the beginning with great company culture and leadership and hiring practices, that place is going to be incredible to work at. It's going to be incredible experience for the founders to have a company where people actually love working there and bring all kinds of, beautiful things to the table, from their authenticity to their creativity to, the blood, sweat, and tears, where people are, when they're really passionate, they really go all in with you. And it's on founders to create the kind of environment that will, facilitate that. And I think being a founder is complex, and there's a lot of different pressures. And so having people come and help with these kinds of pieces that may or may not be top of mind, or skill sets that have been developed yet, can help them create those environments where it's a win-win. They're having a great time. The people who work for them are having a great time. And we get away from so many of the toxic, silly things like, just because you're paying someone does not mean you own their dignity. And that is something that we see come up over and over again. It's like that leaders think that they're owed something more than just, the exchange of time and effort for the paycheck, that somehow, this person is now, because they're an employee or because they work with them, someone that they control. And so getting away from some of these paradigms that don't really serve anybody. And in fact, at the end of the day, they don't serve the business either. There's so many statistics and stories about how productivity and revenue are directly correlated to company culture. So it's a win for your business, it's a win for you, and it's a win for everybody who's going to work for you, to work on company culture and to work with companies like Trybe so that we can help you with that, because not everybody's got the time to go and do the research or to understand how these things can be impacted, especially at the very beginning. But if you set them up with a strong foundation and you are able to get that help, man, your startup will thank you. You will thank you. The people who work for you will thank you. And so, yeah, my vision and my hope is that we can work with founders and startups to get them to a place where they go, working on my company culture, working on my hiring process was the best thing I ever did to get me to where we are today when they are massive and thriving.
That is a beautiful vision, and I totally resonate with that. That's the reason why we're doing what we're doing. And I'm so grateful for you being here together with me as a co-founder, trying to build this from the ground up and make this happen, and build this impact and create this change in the world. Which in a way, so much has of this purpose has been born from the struggles that we've gone through in the workplace as well, and now we get to give back to the next generation. Our pain and our struggles has become our purpose, and that's beautiful when we can take that and make such a huge impact in the world. And I'm so grateful once again that you are my co-founder, and we're building this amazing team and this amazing business and this just cause and this mission that we get to put out in the world. And I'm so grateful for you every day in my life as my wife, and everything that we're doing in our life together as well. Thank you so much for coming onto this podcast and building this. I'm sure we'll be doing a lot more co-founder conversations like this, and maybe next time you can be interviewing me and we can take turns in this as well. But this was fun. Thank you so much, Jess. I loved the whole conversation, such depth in it, and I hope a lot of people have got a lot of value out of this as well. So thank you once again, and we'll see you next time.